Hi guys, how are you? Welcome back to my garden on a beautiful morning. The sun is out. It's a little breezy but beautiful. We had rain last night, which means it is a little bit on the chilly side, and we are expecting more rain tonight, which is amazing for the garden. You can tell on my back that everything is lush and green, and the rain is also ideal for what I want to plant today with you. I'm really excited because I just discovered it in the garden center a couple of days ago. It is something that I had in my garden quite some years ago, and I was heavily underimpressed by it. It was a trending shrub a couple of years ago. It is a Hydrangea Annabelle. And today I'm going to plant it again, two of them, but it's not going to be the old-fashioned ordinary Annabelle. What I found is strong Annabelle, which is an improved version from proven Winners. So what they did basically is they took Annabelle and they were just making sure that all those things that were not good at this existing Annabelle variety just go away basically, and it is a strong, robust and better version of it. I'm really excited to really introduce it back into the garden. Once I saw it in the garden center, I exactly knew where it's bound to go, because you can tell my back, I'm standing like in the midsection of the garden right now. So there's a garden shed, there is a house, the island bed is just here in my back, and in my back there is kind of like the shade area of the garden, which is kind of just like our property and the neighbor's property just like melt together with a lot of shrubs and trees. It's a little bit like shaded, and then if I continue swinging around, there's a lilac here, and then there is an area where this kind of like shade area morphs into the new perennial border, and there is partly shade in the morning, and then in the afternoon it is pretty much full sun, which is ideal for those hydrangeas. So what I want to do first obviously is I just want to give you a quick tour of the area where I want to plant them, give you some information about this new improved variety of Hydrangea Annabelle, which I think might be quite intriguing, especially if you have the old variety in your garden. And I'm just going to tell you why I dumped it basically a couple of years ago, and why I'm so excited to introduce it back into my garden, and then I plant together those two shrubs with you. So I hope you are excited to join me in my garden today. Alright, I'm standing in the midsection of the garden with you. So to the right, there is the island bed. And as you look down into the garden, we are in this like weird momentum of the garden when the spring garden is a thing of the past and we're just waiting for summer color to appear. And this is what I think Nepeta is one of those amazing plants that you really don't want to miss in your garden, because they come back very early in the year and they flower for ages. And just imagine how boring this entire scenery was without the Nepeta. Really glorious. This is the shade area of the garden, which has a lot of sun in the morning though. The alliums are looking really nice. I don't have a lot of alliums. This is something what I thought I really need to just get more alliums in the garden, because they are really beautiful. And you can tell that at this time of the day there is a lot of sun here. Towards the afternoon this will be almost dapple shade towards the back. Only the front of the border will be light and partly shade them. And then there are other areas that hardly ever get any sun but the evening sun. So I think once more things come to bloom, maybe I will do a little separate video of like nice plants that you can grow in a more shady area of your garden, because there are a lot of really intriguing things. So we just continue walking. There is Alfie obviously with me in the garden as well. To the left there are some boxwood spheres, so they're definitely waiting for a prune, which is ideal at this time of the year. So they're looking a little woolly right now, not really giving a lot of structure. And then there they are, two containers of hydrangeas. In the front there is some sedum. You might be like, why is sedum growing in a partly shaded area of the garden? Because this is a variety called Matrona, and it can cope extremely well in full sun obviously, which it prefers, but also it thrives really nice and well in partly shade. Then there is a rose, or three roses. This is Rose Novalis. Needed to have it. It really flowers in true violet lilac, which is beautiful also in combination with the Nepeta here. And then in the back, this is where I planted 5 autumn anemones together with you earlier on in the year. They are looking cute. I mean, they came in tiny containers, but still, they've rooted in, I think they thrive, they look fantastic. And I feel all of this will be just beautiful with these 2 hydrangeas here. And honestly, when I went to the garden center, I saw them in the distance, like, oh yeah, okay, hydrangeas, probably Annabelle. And then I saw the white label, because normally proven winner plants come with white containers and you can see them shining in the garden center from the distance. Sadly, these are black. So they didn't really scream from the distance, but it was a big label. So thank God that is in there. So I ran to those and I was like, oh my, I need to have them. Just look at them. Really lovely, robust, strong stems already. Wonderful, lush foliage. and then the first big blooms just about to open. It looks a little sad, which is not because it is leaking water. Well, the problem is that yesterday we had heavy winds here. So this container tumbled over and it was laying flat probably for 24 hours. And this is why these stems decided to just like face upwards. So this is why they are looking like this at the moment. So don't be scared about that. This is going to go back probably today even. The other one looks a lot better because they did not tumble over. So what I want to do is obviously first just give you a quick information about Hydrangea Annabelle, and especially the strong Annabelle, and why I think it's absolutely worth growing it in your own garden. If you have one of the old-fashioned variety of Annabelle in your own garden, I think you might experience just what I experienced here a couple of years ago. So Annabelle was one of those hydrangea varieties that was quite trending, I would say probably 15 years ago already. Really, it dates back. And I always had it on top of my head and I was like, oh, it's got to be nice, and I wanted to have them. And then I bought one, and what happened is it produces these absolute wonderful big wide blooms, but then the stems are not able to support those blooms because it's so top heavy, and especially in summer when you have one of those like heavy summer rains or wind. I mean, here on top of the dike there's constantly wind. Those stems were not able to support the entire weight of those blooms anymore, and especially after a rain, what happens is it's just gonna lay flat pancake in your border, and then the staking game starts. And to be fair, it never really came back looking nice, even though I put so many stakes inside of that hydrangea, and it was still kind of like drooping and not nice. And I thought, you know what, it's just so not worth it. I looked at the entire situation for 2 years, and then it was for the chop and went straight onto the compost heap. That was it. That was the end of my Annabelle love, I think. And then I heard about this new variety of Annabelle, a strong Annabelle, and I was like, oh great. And then I figured, oh yeah, it's available in the United States, not in Europe, so what's the point? And then suddenly I discovered that Proven Winners is also available suddenly now in Europe. To be fair, here in Poland, I've seen a lot more shrubs. Also, the Panacetum vertigo that I just introduced to you in one of my previous videos is available here. I haven't seen any annual, unfortunately, because I have beautiful petunias, so fingers crossed that at one point I'm going to get my hands on some of those petunias as well. But you know what, baby steps, I'm happy for whatever I can find. So the nice thing about this improved version of the hydrangea obviously is the word strong already implements it. These stems are very strong and robust, and they are able to support the weight of these blooms. I think already here you can tell, looking at it, that they are about to come to bloom, and they're really going to have beautiful mob pads in white. And as these flowers progress through the season, they will age from white into a nice green tone. And I think that this is going to be really beautiful, because then it fits into any kind of garden scenery. Because a lot of hydrangeas, they might age into a pinkish tone, and then you kind of like immediately in a certain world of color. But when they age into more chartreuse green, then the entire door is open to combine it with whatever you want, which is perfect for me, because in the back of a garden I focus on color combinations of red and purple and lilac and blue, so that this like greenish hydrangeas in autumn will just fit perfectly. Another really nice thing about these Proven Winners plants is that they come with a very good detailed label, so a lot of valid information. What I'm going to do is I'm going to keep the label just as a little reminder. So this variety can grow 1.20 m in width and 1.40 m in height, which is not going to happen here for two different reasons. The first one is climate zone. I'm in a zone 7B, so it is wonderful and moderate. You know, I'm not going to have like crazy hot summers. I have like hot days in summer, but not like 4 weeks of like 38 degrees. That rarely happens here. And then also winter is generally mild. There are again nights where it can be quite cold, but never weeks where it is cold. And I know that this variety is bound to work here, because it goes down to -30 degrees, which never happens here, I believe. The second reason why this is not going to grow to the full size is that nothing in my garden is on irrigation. So only when there is almost like a drought, I come out and water. What I do is when I plant something, I water it in when I plant it, and then I just leave it to do its own business, which generally works fairly well here. Then it flowers between Roman numbers June and September, but obviously these flower heads age really gracefully into green tone, and at one point they browns off, so they are really nice. Even with the winter structure, after those leaves are gone, you're still left with a nice framework of branches topped by these really wonderful dried of hydrangea blooms that you can even cut and use for kind of like autumnal arrangements, or even I used them last year for Christmas decoration, which is really beautiful. In terms of location, it prefers partly shade, which is ideal because it gets a little bit of morning sun and then it gets afternoon sun. So like the harsh lunchtime sun that is not going to be in this area here, which is really ideal for this variety. The nice thing about it is it even tells you can't eat it. I love that. Bless you guys. Wonderful that you need to put that information on there. Wonder whoever had the idea to eat a hydrangea. But you cut it back in March. So this is information which I love when it comes on a label, because obviously these kind of shrubs, hydrangeas, they produce better flowers and stems when you really get in and prune them. So when it's March time, I'm going to do a video and show you how to prune these beauties. And sometimes I'll think it's a little iffy. You never really know when to prune those plants. I'm really grateful and thankful when this information comes in here. Even on the inside, a lot of good and valid information comes in again. So all the things that I just said to you written in here in English, German, French and Dutch, not in Polish. Guys, we are in Poland. People here think they would appreciate if it was in the native language, because I live in Poland and let me tell you, my Polish is really bad. And I try to make it work with English and a little bit of Polish and a big smile. So I think some Polish information would do a better job in selling these plants here at least, but I think they are really beautiful. So what I'm going to do now is I will improve the soil here. Because hydrangea, just the word already implements hydrangea, hydro, what they love to sit somewhere with a consistent moisture level. I have very sandy soil, which is typical for the south coast of the Baltic Sea, which means that I'm going to amend the soil a little bit here. I will just come in, just take some shovels of the sandy soil out. I have 2 bags of fresh garden compost, just mix it into a good decent sized planting hole, come in with some starting fertilizer, and then I plant them together with you. So I will do now first is I will just get in there, just get some soil out, and then we continue and finally plant them and also water them in extremely thoroughly, because I water them, the containers are looking good and nice, but that's what I love to do, and I think this is always good whenever you plant a shrub, give it a good soak straight in the beginning. I've already prepared the planting hole, and the rule of thumb is if you're planting any kind of shrub, your planting hole should be pretty much triple the size of the container. So we're looking at the container. I think I've gone a little bigger actually than that. And the reason is quite simple. So if I just show you, I'm just go a little closer to the camera so you really get to see. This is the native soil situation that I'm dealing with here, which is very yellowish because the soil is extremely sandy. Things thrive in here, so it is still fertile. Anything that likes this situation thrives extremely well here. So this is why bearded iris, I could honestly start growing and marketing bearded iris. It's incredible how vigorous they are. I think you saw it in one of my previous videos where I did this little tour with you. But what I will do now first is I will start amending the soil. I've got fresh soil from the bag. So what I do is first, just come in and put some fresh, nice soil in here. Really all around it. It's a little compacted, so make sure that you break the clumps so that everything is nice and lofty and fresh. So I think this is a nice start. Even though the soil is sandy here, we had quite some rain. And you know, everything is mulching with wood chips here. So the soil is moist, and even here in this area, which is ideal for the hydrangeas because they're not basking in the sun, so the soil stays at a quite steady level in terms of moisture, which is really good for hydrangeas. So all I do now is just loften everything up. Then I come in with my starting fertilizer. I always use organic bone chips or organic bone meal. This is just from my experience very good. What it does, it increases the nitrogen level in the soil. So it is not going to produce more blooms or bigger blooms. It encourages your plants to develop a better root system. And this is very vital for any kind of perennial and shrubs obviously as well. So doing this, you're really doing goodness to the plant, because when your plant has a good, strong, robust root system, especially here, it is going to come over winter well, and then it is going to thrive back better next year. So what I already did is I checked the container for the root system, obviously already in the garden center. So it has a very nice root system. It's not pot bound. It holds the shape though, so the soil does not crumble apart. You have very nice fibrous roots just like all the way around here. I'm not going to break them apart now because you really need to have an eye on it. Sometimes it's good to come in and just tease them off a little bit, especially when it is pot bound. But since they are looking very nice and fresh, I'm not going to do anything because that might just disturb them. I know that they will just start rooting outwards, especially since there is a lot of lovely fresh soil all the way around them. So what I do now is place it in the hole and already check if it is level, because you always want to make sure that you plant dead level, which it is almost. Maybe a little more soil underneath. Won't be bad, just a tad, because the soil is fresh and it's still going to sink in, obviously. Yeah, that is good, that is better. Now what I do is, I do it just like my dad always did it, because this is a nice way on soaking a plant. I have an entire can full of water, so I just pour the entire water now into the planting hole, or like half, because there's not too much soil in there now, and already over here, so that the entire fresh soil can just be saturated with all the moisture. And now I'm going to come in with almost the rest of the soil, I think. Might not need everything. Maybe I do need to see. And then really start firming it in. You don't want to have air pockets. I mean, at this time of the year, I plant quite like in late spring, early summer. We're just in this time where seasons are shifting. So you don't want to have air pockets, especially during winter time, because then frost can come in, water can just like lock in there, and then when you have frost at your roots, that is never good. This is not what any plant likes. So always good to firm it in. You can also just trample around it later on with your feet if you want to do so. So this looks all really nice. Sometimes people also build this like water ring around it. So when you water it by hand, that the water is going to stay in there. I don't do it because also everything is mulched and we normally have enough rain here over the year. So this is bound to work, I think. A little more soil here. That looks nice. Okay, still a little bit more later on. And then I just pour the last bit of the water over there. Because now also when the entire fresh soil is moist, what happens is it just sinks in naturally, so everything just gets pushed down with the water. So your plant immediately gets pushed into the ground. So this looks extremely nice already. I think I'm going to need the entire bag pretty much, but I have a second one. Really firm it in now. That looks so nice. Oh, I think it's going to be so happy here, especially now after one day. All these stems that were kind of like looking funny now, they're definitely going to go upwards again. Yes, that is perfect. So what I do now is just push all of my mulch back. So everything is mulched nice. And then I'm just going to plant the second one next to it, just with a little distance where I'm standing here. I think that'd be so beautiful, especially now in the afternoon sun. You can already see that the first sun starts to hit them. So now just imagine these big wide blooms here. I think it just fits the style of my garden and the house so well. So yeah, I'm really, really happy that finally I could get my hand on these two beautiful, strong Annabelles. The second one is going to go into the ground now, and then obviously I'm going to give you one last tour of the entire situation. Both the hydrangeas are planted, and obviously I want to give you one last look at the entire situation, and I want to give you a look from where I'm standing here, because if I swing around you get to see there's a wheelbarrow with all my mess still in there. But like I always think when I plan the garden, how is it going to look when we sit up there on the terrace or on the top balcony, because this is kind of like the vista into the garden, and whatever I plant I kind of just like imagine how is it going to look from up there, and I think it is bound to work extremely well. So I just quickly want to give you one last look at it now. This is one of my favorite vistas into the garden, and not only because Alfie lies there right now enjoying herself in the shade. Imagine now later on in the year. On the left there is a wonderful big drift of asters. I come in with my finger now, so here. This is a variety called Aster astron. It flowers in the most beautiful pale violet, starts late August and then it keeps on going for at least 2 months. And then I have the box spheres here. Once they are clipped back and in a really wonderful sphere shape again, looking spick and span, I think they always bring a wonderful element of texture to your borders. And then the hydrangeas that basically reflect what the boxwoods are doing. So I have the green sphere from the boxwoods, and then I'm going to have white spheres in the flower heads on those hydrangeas. So I think this is going to be a wonderful element of cohesion, and especially later on in the year in autumn, when these flower heads are going to turn green, then I have the green spheres in the boxwoods and the green spheres on those hydrangeas. Obviously, when the entire border starts to mature more, this is going to be such a beautiful side with the red cotinus in the back, especially in the afternoon sun when those leaves start to glow crimson red. In the front there is a drift of sedum. This is a Matrona. It's going to flower in a really beautiful pale blush tone, these disc-shaped flower heads, and then a great contrast to the big blooms of the hydrangeas. And I think the lovely thing about adding anything that flowers white into a partly shade area of your garden is quite obvious, because it brings light into this area. This was a quite gloomy and not exciting area of the garden. Obviously nothing was planted in here, and it really took me an entire year to figure what should go in there. And once I saw these 2 hydrangeas in the garden center, I was like, yes, they are bound to go into this area and they're going to work and they're going to look just beautiful. They are mulched in well, they are watered in well. We are expecting more rain in the late afternoon or early evening today, so more goodness is on its way for them. I'm really so thrilled about these 2 additions to this part of the garden. That's it for today's video, and I think you could sense my excitement about these 2 hydrangeas, because I think they are just the perfect addition for this part of the garden. And obviously I'm going to keep you posted and give you updates on how they're going to perform throughout the entire year, how the blooms are going to look, and if they are really as strong as the label promises. Because if anything survives the harsh winds on this dike and the heavy midsummer rains that we sometimes have here, then it's definitely worth trying it out in your own garden. But that is going to happen another time of the year. I just want to say thank you so much for watching today's video, and I would love to welcome you in my garden very soon again. Take care, guys. Bye.